I never imagined a single moment could unravel my entire life, but that's exactly what happened at my best friend Sarah's wedding. It was a warm summer evening, the kind where the air feels thick with possibility, and the fairy lights strung across the venue cast a dreamy glow over everything. I was there as Sarah's maid of honor, standing by her side as she married the love of her life. But my heart wasn't entirely focused on the celebration. It was tangled up in the past, in a name I hadn't allowed myself to think about in years. Levi. Levi was my college crush, the one who got away. Back then, we were inseparable late-night study sessions that seamlessly turned into conversations about our hopes, our dreams. We exchanged stolen glances across crowded lecture halls, sharing moments where I swore he was about to kiss me but never did. We had this unspoken connection, a mutual crush that neither of us acted on before life pulled us in different directions. I ended up marrying Jimmy, a steady, dependable man who loved me fiercely, and I convinced myself that Levi was just a memory. But when Sarah casually mentioned that Levi would be at the wedding, something inside me stirred. Old feelings I thought I had buried came rushing back, like a song I hadn't heard in years but still knew every word to. The night of the wedding, I spotted him across the room. He looked different, older, more rugged, with a quiet confidence that made my stomach flip. Our eyes met, and it was as though no time had passed. We exchanged polite small talk at first, catching up on jobs, cities, but the air between us crackled with something unspoken. Later, when the dance floor was in full swing and Jimmy was off chatting with Sarah's cousins, Levi found me again. We stepped outside to get some air, and under the stars, with the music muffled in the distance, he admitted he'd always regretted not telling me how he felt back then. My heart raced. I told him I'd felt the same. And then, in a moment that felt both inevitable and reckless, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't just a kiss. It was years of pent-up longing, of wondering what could have been. My body responded before my mind could catch up, and for those few seconds I forgot about Jimmy, about the ring on my finger, about everything. But the moment was fleeting. A guest stumbled outside, laughing loudly, and we pulled apart, reality crashing back in. I mumbled something about needing to check on Sarah and hurried inside, my cheeks burning with guilt and exhilaration. I thought that would be the end of it, a secret I'd carry and bury. But a few days later, Sarah, oblivious to what had happened, gave me Levi's number. She thought we'd had fun catching up and suggested I reach out to stay in touch. I stared at that number for hours, my thumb hovering over the call button. I knew I should delete it, tell Jimmy what happened, and beg for his forgiveness. But the memory of Levi's kiss kept pulling me back. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the world. So I called him. We agreed to meet for coffee, just to talk. I told myself that was all it would be. But the moment I saw him sitting at that corner table, his smile soft and familiar, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. We talked for hours, reminiscing about college, laughing over old inside jokes, and slowly the conversation turned deeper. He told me he'd never stopped thinking about me, that he'd always wondered what might have been. I admitted I'd wondered too. The spark between us wasn't just nostalgia. It was alive, electric, and impossible to ignore. When he reached for my hand across the table, I didn't pull away. And when he suggested we go back to his place to keep talking, I said yes, even though I knew what it meant. At his apartment, the air was thick with anticipation. We sat on his couch, closer than we needed to be, and then we were kissing again. Deeper, hungrier. This time it wasn't just a kiss anymore. It was hands tangled in hair, bodies pressed together, a blur of desire that drowned out every rational thought. I lost myself in him, in the fantasy of what could have been. But then the door swung open, and my world shattered. Jimmy stood there, his face a mask of shock and rage. I later learned he'd been trying to surprise me by picking me up after my coffee date, which I'd vaguely mentioned to him. He'd called Sarah, who innocently gave him Levi's address, thinking I was just catching up with an old friend. Now he was staring at me in another man's arms, and the betrayal in his eyes cut deeper than any words could. Levi tried to step between us, but Jimmy shoved him hard. They scuffled, chaotic, a blur of shouts and fists, until I screamed for them to stop. Jimmy turned to me, his voice low and venomous. "We're done," he said, and then he was gone. The door slammed behind him. Levi tried to comfort me, but I pushed him away, too overwhelmed to think. I left his apartment in a daze, my mind replaying the moment Jimmy saw us, the moment I broke his heart. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Jimmy wouldn't answer my calls or texts. Sarah, when she found out, was furious, not just because I cheated, but because I tainted her wedding with my actions. She said she needed space, and just like that, my best friend was gone too. I felt like I was drowning, isolated and consumed by guilt. Levi reached out once, asking if I was okay, but when I didn't respond, he stopped trying. I was alone, left to face the wreckage of my choices. A week later, a courier delivered divorce papers to my door. I sat on the floor, staring at Jimmy's signature, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. It wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the speed of it, the finality. I couldn't believe he'd given up on us so quickly over one mistake, no matter how terrible. Part of me wondered if he'd been looking for an excuse, if our marriage had been faltering in ways I hadn't wanted to see. But the truth was, I'd betrayed him. I chose a fleeting moment of passion over the man who'd promised to love me forever. And now he was gone. I tried to make sense of it all, to understand how I'd gone from a kiss to losing everything. I felt betrayed too. By Jimmy for walking away so easily, by Sarah for shutting me out, by Levi for disappearing when I needed someone to lean on. But mostly I was angry at myself. I'd let old feelings cloud my judgment, let a fantasy destroy my reality. Now I'm single, picking up the pieces of a life I barely recognize. I'm not looking for flings or fleeting sparks anymore. I want something real, something serious. But I know it'll take time to rebuild trust, not just with someone new but with myself. As I move forward, the hurt lingers, a constant reminder of the cost of my weakness. I don't know if Jimmy or Sarah will ever forgive me, or if I'll ever forgive myself. But I'm trying to learn from it, to grow and to never again let a moment of temptation define my future.